And good morning, good afternoon, and evening. Cheers. And we have about a 15-second lag here for me to do an audio check. Hope you all are doing well. It is Friday. It is another Friday. And I think we have audio, but my audio settings are low. Okay, so we'll give it a try. Oh, now they're a little hot. Okay, let's see how that goes. So, good morning, buenos dias, buenas noches, Mo. Okay, what do we got going on this week? I cannot believe it is Friday. This will be a common theme. Ask a question, send a comment. What are you working on? What new thing did you learn with Business Central? Did you find a new feature, an obscure setting, a bug, perchance? What new projects are you working on? What's interesting? I want to know. And this week, Gabe from Good Beans El Salvador is having a special, a sale, a discount code. And if you go to his website, thegoodbeans.com, you can enter the code 8% at checkout for 8% off your entire order. And he ships internationally to most countries. There are some countries that are a bit of a problem shipping coffee to, but many major countries accept his packages through DHL. So I am having the standard Toragos coffee, his standard house coffee. It's quite good. So if you need some bulk coffee, place an order. Okay. The weekend. Wow. Like, I don't know what happened. It feels like the weekend was yesterday, but on the weekend, I actually did something semi-productive. Among other things, one thing I did is I received another laptop from my eBay laptop series. And this is a ThinkPad T14S Gen 2. And I previously purchased the Gen 1s, and they were fairly decent, typical kind of ThinkPad form factor. Well, this Gen 2 is available at a decent price, and I think I show what the price was. And it was noted as excellent condition by the seller, who I've purchased from many times before. And when they say it's in like new condition, it's accurate. So this, I think, is a 2020 model, so 4 years old. It has an aluminum body. It doesn't have that kind of plasticized or overcoated plastic kind of feeling case. This one feels like solid metal, so kind of different. I don't know if all Gen 2s are like this or what, but this one is very nice, whatever version or variant it is. I actually don't know all the different variants of it. It has a fingerprint reader on the power switch. It's got the IR camera, the slightly upgraded webcam that isn't horrible like most ThinkPads, and it also has a touchscreen. So this thing is like brand new. So I swapped in a new SSD just for security reasons. I don't want to use an eBay hard drive on my laptop. So I just popped in a 1 terabyte high-end SSD, which now costs $89. It's trivial. And I have a fully functional laptop. And the specs on this one claim it is as low as 2.83 pounds. I don't know what that means. I need to weigh this and compare it to an X1 Carbon, but it is looking pretty nice. So yeah. And how much was this thing? Oh, so that's it. There's not a fingerprint on it. There isn't a single worn key. There are no palm prints. There's no wear on the trackpad. Like, it is brand new. It's only had, I think, 16 battery cycles on it in 4 years, or some crazy low number. It's immaculate. And there's the price: $386 with $37 for shipping, $423 total. You add in the $89 SSD, and you're under $520. So yeah, $525, something like that. So pretty phenomenal deal. And once again, it makes me never want to buy a new laptop again, because this model, the current model new, is $1,800. So that's the laptop plus tax plus shipping, $1,800. And I basically got this one for $500. I had the SSD laying around. So for me, it was $423. So pretty phenomenal deal. I'm going to use this to replace a ThinkPad P1, I think, which is the monster workstation, which I absolutely hate. Not because it's a bad laptop, but because it is it is so heavy. It feels like it weighs 15 pounds. It barely fits in my backpacks. The 170-watt power supply is a monster. It's a proprietary high power. It's just absolute nightmare to travel with that thing. So I now hate the P1. It's just doesn't make sense for what I do. So this T14S Gen 2 is a nice compromise between the lightweight of an X1 Carbon. It's only a little bit heavier and it's pretty cheap and it doesn't have the hassles of the P1. So that's what I'm going to be working with. So I'm getting that built out still, almost done with that. And the weekly projects, the help desk is officially live. We are getting customer support tickets through it and answering that. So that has kept me very busy. Ronald and I worked on some Power Automate flows and are learning more about that. And this week was just non-stop calls, like just booked out 6 calls in a row all day long. The week just flew by, so I don't know what happened there. I'm not used to it. I don't know why this is happening, but yeah. Anyway, so that's what's going on. Monday, we're basically taking for ERP support team, we're picking a support ticket, studying it, trying to understand what's going on there so we can learn, understand how to respond, and also create knowledge base articles for every single test ticket that we had. And one was interesting. The customer, this is a live ticket. It says, customer said, I need to delete a purchase credit memo, and included a screenshot of the entire monitor. And they were encountering an error message, which you could barely read. So you had to zoom in 500 times to read this message on the giant screenshot. And those of you who have been using BC or previously NAV may be familiar with this. Allow document deletion before, must have a value in purchases and payables setup. Primary key equals blank. It cannot be 0 or empty. And I didn't know what this meant at first. It was pretty puzzling. I thought it was an event, an AL event. Allow document deletion before. Some event was firing and some setup and configuration was empty. I was close, but turns out allow document deletion before is an actual field in purchases and payable setup. Shocker, I have not looked at every single field and memorized every single field on every single setup page. So excuse me for not knowing that allow document deletion before was a field on the purchases and payable setup page. I do now know it exists, and I've been told it is on I think it's in the GL setup and it's probably on sales and receivables. I need to find it. But my understanding now is that this date field prevents, it's kind of strange. It's the weirdest language, at least at first. You enter a date, BC will allow you to delete documents prior to that date. It will not allow you to delete documents after that date. Well, what if I don't want to delete any documents and I don't want any users to delete a document? Well, you could say, well, just leave it blank. But then you get this cryptic, meaningless error that is not handled. Like, come on, just say, if it's blank, document deletion is not allowed. Like, why have this cryptic error message? It's like an unhandled error almost. Very strange. But after talking with Tanya about this and how it's designed, and we speculate that this is a really old feature that was, back in the day when hard drive space was an issue, database capacity was an issue, this date would allow you to archive or purge documents prior to a given date. So you could set that date, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever, and the cleanup routines, the purge routines, the archive routines would allow you to archive, prior to 2020. So in that respect, we kind of rationalize how this works and what it does. And Yeah, so we think it makes sense now, but I just want it to be blank. What if we don't want users to delete anything? That error message is pretty annoying, and it was confusing for us, confusing for the user. Now we know what it is, and we now have a KB article on it, but like, come on. And Ted says, review all the setup tables. It is amazing how many new features you can find. Absolutely. I totally agree. Um, Reviewing this, it's very time consuming because you have to go through these options and you have to say, well, combine special orders default. What in the world does that even mean? And that leads you down a 2-hour rabbit hole where you're trying to research what are they even talking about, and then what does this option do relative to that topic. And so it like, yeah, maybe one or two a day you could get through. Maybe some are obvious, but yeah, a little tricky. And Ted also says in SaaS where database space is expensive. Well, it's all relative, right? I mean, 1980 or whenever these ERP systems started to come out, 10 megabyte hard drive might have been expensive. Now we get the allocation plus users, and hopefully the archive routines are improved. I'm not terribly helpful or hopeful on that, but yeah, so now we know, and I have seen the document archive or whatever they call it, the document purge option through Admin Center, through the storage and capacity page. I forget what it's called, but basically you can set it up to purge old stuff. Most of my customers historically do not want to delete stuff because it's just fraught with issues, but I think BC is a little better equipped to deal with that given how they do the documents and the journals. But anyway, interesting. So that's what we learned on Monday. Early in the week, I saw this article by Bruce Schneier. If you're not familiar with Bruce Schneier, he is a kind of a long-time information security and cryptography expert, I'll say, subject matter expert perhaps. And he actually submitted one of the algorithms for consideration in the NIST competition for what is now AES. So back in the late 90s, he submitted Twofish, I believe. Twofish or Blowfish, I can't remember which one of the fishes. And so he kind of knows his stuff in terms of security and cryptography, but he has a company, he speaks around the world, so he's not really in the weeds, but he does have some interesting thoughts on things. And so he and a co-author, Nathan Sanders, wrote this article in IEEE Spectrum. AI mistakes are very different than human mistakes. And it's interesting in that this article points out, and there's a QR code over there. You can jump to this article and read it. Really interesting, where he just talks about the nature of mistakes that we're observing in AI or LLMs, how they will confidently make mistakes, how they will make mistakes that are just so utterly bizarre that no human would consider this like obviously that's wrong. But then sometimes they have output that you're just like, wow, that's either genius or amazing or super clever, or would have taken me 20 hours to come up with that, whatever. And his point also was that they make mistakes kind of all over the place. It's not like if I tried to pretend to be a physicist, I would just be terrible because I would constantly make mistakes in the physics. But I could still cook dinner. But the AI, it may tell you to take a jar of pickles and put it directly in the frying pan. Like, it produces some random results in all over the place. And it just gets confused in all areas, but not all the time. So he talks about these things and how it's going to challenge us to determine what is valid output, what is a mistake, how do we assess these things, and its long-term effect on information security. If we're trying to secure these systems, if they don't behave like humans, we can't use the rules we've developed for human information security and apply them to AI or LLMs or whatever. So he used the term weirdness, and for humans, it is weird. But anyway, Ted says that the allowed date deletion is not, is in Nav4 from 2000. So yeah, it's been around for a long time. Okay, and one of the quotes, AI errors come at seemingly random times without any clustering around particular topics. LLM mistakes tend to be more evenly distributed throughout the knowledge space. A model might be equally likely to make a mistake on a calculus question as it is to propose that cabbages eat goats. And if you played with LLMs or AI image generation, you'll see it's like, wait, why does this person have 4 arms, right? And like just random results. Okay, moving on to Tuesday Martes. Jocelyn gave a Business Central training and she talked about fiscal periods. So everyone in Berlin is learning from scratch. They are not accountants, they are not ERP consultants historically. This is all new for them. So we cover the basics. And one of those basics is fiscal periods. It's pretty fundamental to ERP systems, ERP consulting, customer support, financial statements, transactions, posting, you name it. It's just one of those things that spans every single topic in ERP. You kind of need to understand that as context. So she talked about fiscal periods, calendar year, fiscal years, non-standard periods, quarters, months, etc., how to set those up in BC, how to generate an entire year, how to manually do them. So that was a good discussion. And then we had a call to discuss another support ticket, and we're seeing themes already. Very early on, we're seeing themes of support requests that people have. This one is related to payment journals, generating payments or checks to print, and then in this case, printing credit memos on a check remittance. Like all sorts of things are clustering around AP, payables, payment remittance, and generating payments. And we realized that you can go into Payment Journal and do it that way. But then we realized you can go into, I think it's the vendor ledger entries or something, and I think select an invoice and a credit memo simultaneously. And if you click create payment, it generates a very strange payment journal with a refund line for the credit. And we haven't taken the time to figure that out. We just know it causes problems, causes confusion, and we're like, don't do it that way. So if someone understands why selecting a credit memo on the vendor ledger entries generates a refund entry on a payment journal, and like what legitimate use case is for that for a vendor. Anyway, we just bumped into that trying to figure it out. Tanya was aware of it. She hasn't bothered to dig into it further. She's just like, don't do that. Just do it this way. It's much easier. So path of least resistance, when you've got 100 things going on, you don't have time to explore all these oddities. And it's like, I have no idea why that happened. Stop, move away, go this way. It'll just save you time. So that's often the result of weird things. Tuesday, I had a call with a Techfluent grad. She was one of the candidates that I spoke with to interview her for being accepted into the second round of the Techfluent training program. And so she reached out and had a follow-up call, talked about the new position that she got after she finished the Techfluent training. And it's with an ISV for finance and operations, or whatever Microsoft calls 365 finance these days. So that was good to hear. So she kept in touch, and that's awesome. So that was cool. And this one blew my mind. I was unaware of this. I'm aware of lots of other Wi-Fi issues, network security issues, and precautions and common things, but this one I was unaware of. And it's not new at all. This kind of like melted my brain. So I saw this tweet where this person has this small IoT device with a built-in screen or an attached screen, and he's sitting in a coffee shop or something. And the Twitter user is mobile hacker at Android malware 2. And it says smartphones constantly tell nearby devices which Wi-Fi networks you've connected to in the past and want to reconnect to automatically. So check out that QR code in the corner, and like it melts your brain. This information is visible for anyone. And anyone can, based on these broadcasts from your mobile device, create a rogue Wi-Fi access point to target those devices. I said, wait a minute, this cannot be real. And I did research on this, and there's not a lot of documentation on it, but I found this Black Hat presentation from 2014, Black Hat Asia, where Glenn Wilkinson, he was at the time, he was a security consultant pen tester for a company in South Africa, I believe. And so this was in Singapore in 2014. And his presentation is called The Machines That Betrayed Their Masters. And he talked about this 10 years ago, that he is able to actively exploit this flaw in the Wi-Fi protocol. It is absolutely absurd. Now, since then, supposedly there are some small mitigations against this, like I think one minor mitigation is that, like, at least on the iPhone, you can have random MAC addresses for each Wi-Fi SSID you connect to. But as far as I know, it doesn't prevent the broadcast of all of your saved SSIDs, which is absolutely bonkers. And so Ted says, wouldn't the rogue AP need the same password? Yes. And so they talk about, you just scan for the public. If you want to do a rogue AP, you scan for the ones that do not require authentication. And so you could have a script to automatically set up all of the SSIDs. And if your phone connects to one, and, you know, like if it's, I don't know, Hilton Honors Wi-Fi is one that I know I've been to that doesn't require a password. There you go. So Glenn Wilkinson talks about, you can easily see the ones that do not require authentication, Starbucks, whatever. And then he goes further by saying, when you do this capture of people's SSIDs that are being broadcast from their phone, he's been sitting in a coffee shop somewhere and two men walk in and he's monitoring all these broadcasts and he can see the SSIDs that their phones are broadcasting. He has a script and a tool. I think it's called like Evil Snoopy or something like that. It's some weird name. It instantly looks up those SSIDs in a global database that's a crowdsourced database, geolocates where that SSID is, and within 30 seconds, he knows where those two people are from, where they work, where they likely live, which company they work for in the region. Absolutely melting. Welcome, Eric. Greetings and salutations. Buenos dias. Yes, buenos dias. So if you want to just like have your jaw hit the floor, first check out this tweet by Android Malware 2, and you're like, wait, that can't be real. That's what I said. It's like, that's not real. Like, no way my phone is broadcasting every SSID I've ever used it on. Then go over to watch Glenn Wilkinson's talk from Black Hat Asia 2014, and you'll just be like, you'll just want to like throw your phone in the pool or something, you know, just turn it off. And absolutely bonkers what he can do with just passive SSID scanning. Absolute, like, yeah, you can have no OPSEC if you have a phone on you, period. Hola, David. Hola, Brad. Lo siento on lack of notifications. I'm sorry. So many things are busted. I've given up on you know, the Twitter algorithm and things working. So welcome, everyone. Come on in. Okay. So moving on to Wednesday, miércoles, travel planning. I have booked my trip to El Salvador. That is finally in place. I am looking into travel to Vegas for Directions NA. That is in April. Then Chicago for Dynamics Con in May. And then potentially a trip to Denmark, which I'm just dreading given the length of the flight, the cost of the flight. It is just brutal. And also, I went to Denmark, I think in 2022. I got COVID on the plane there. So like 3 days into being in Denmark or 5 days, whatever, I got full on COVID for the first time and I was stuck there for a week recovering, had to spend $3,000 to change my flight. It was an absolute nightmare. All the hotels are full. So I'm literally walking along the street in the middle of nowhere to different hotels to get a new room in middle of nowhere, Denmark, because the hotels were full and I've got COVID and it was the looniest time. And then maybe Thailand. I don't think I can afford the time or the expense of Thailand. So, yeah, great conference hack. Yeah, scan everyone's SSID at the next conference, Brad. Let me know how that goes. No MVP, Christopher, no MVP summit for me in March. No, I went once, and since I'm focusing on Business Central, as you'll see, the content is not related to Business Central, and just the vibe wasn't for me. Just my thing. I think the Dynamics conferences are much more enjoyable for me. The mix of people and the type of people who attend are just, I can relate to them. It was a very strange conference for me to attend MVP Summit. So I was like, yeah, I mean, it was neat to visit the campus, do it once, but after that, I just didn't see the value in going. But that's just me. Enjoy. Flight COVID is so last year. I've had it twice from flights. So unfortunately, I have to wear the stupid mask on every flight because like I am a viral magnet. I've had the flu from going to Directions NA. I got influenza A, got COVID twice from flights. So yes, if I could not fly, I'd be a very happy man. And code review with Franklin. We had a call. We reviewed one of the projects to have Franklin learn AL language is to review existing code. So he has some of our PTEs we developed. And recently, Stefan Marone had a secret project, not so secret, called BC Sentinel. And it is a scanning tool. So Franklin is learning by reviewing the Sentinel code, which is on GitHub, and we are going to be writing rules to contribute to Sentinel. So Franklin is learning that. We did a review of one of the rules, looked up how it worked, which tables it's scanning. It's basically checking for the status of installed applications, whether it's dev, global, or PTE. And so that was interesting. Then I tried to do some support ticket catch up on my day job, my night job. I don't even know which job it is for Dynamics GP customers. And I had a call with a customer that is still on GP 2015. ERP COE Berlin. Hey, who are you? Someone in Berlin is saying hola. Hola, Berlin. Buenos dias. Yeah, so I had a call with a Dynamics GP 2015 customer. Think about that. That's 10 years old. And so, yeah, they had no desire to upgrade. Works perfectly fine. I don't blame them. They're not using payroll. They're not using sales tax. So, like, why bother? So that is where the on-prem world is at. Upcoming events, as I mentioned, Directions NA is in April in Las Vegas, directionsna.com. Color Cloud, later April in Hamburg, Germany. Dynamics Con in May 13th through 16th, Chicago. I will see you there. Dynamics Minds, May 26th through 28th in Slovenia. So we have a full spring. On Thursday, I had a call with one of my Dynamics GP on-prem. It was a prospect, and I work with an industry-specific application in the transportation industry. I've worked with them for several years, and I have an integration between their system and Dynamics GP. So we have regular calls with their customers. And very interesting industry where these customers, not small companies, will change out their operational systems like their wardrobe. Like last year, we used this operational system. This year, we're using this operational system. Next year, we're moving to this one. And it's this round robin or whatever the game is where you grab the last seat, musical chairs. And I'm like, okay, so they were on this system. Now they're on this system and they're moving to this system, and they needed help figuring out how they're going to do all their vendor mappings because each system has different vendor IDs. And I'm just like, what are you people doing? So it's almost like the grass is greener or something, and they think the next system is going to somehow solve all their problems because they spoke with a salesperson. Funny thing about that, right? So I had a call with them and like, okay. And what's interesting about these customers is their operational system is 90% of what they do. And the accounting portion, the ERP, is just like secondary. It's after the fact. It's kind of annoying. Um, so anyway, it is interesting. And so they don't fully understand how their ERP system works. And I've been brought in to help kind of explain how it's going to work and how it's going to interact with these systems. And I say, are you using this integration tool? And they're like, I don't know. Are we? So like, it's kind of an interesting situation. And then I had another call with a customer. We have a product that monitors posting, handles posting, it monitors it, lets the customer know if there's a problem. Steve, why is your program getting me so many errors? I'm like, well, it's simply reporting the errors. And this is the problem with having really good logging, really good error notification, really good fault tolerance, is your application becomes the only one reporting these issues. And so your application gets blamed for the issues that it's just simply observing. So customers like, why is posting taking so long? And our log dutifully records how many seconds it takes for a database record to get unlocked. And I had to do the math, and one batch took 129 hours before the system released the lock on the database. And they're like, why is your software so bad? I'm like, it's just reporting what the ERP system did. Like, we'll fix it. Okay, have you checked your database recently? Have you checked how much RAM you have on your production server? So it's a database issue. It's a database performance issue. It's a SQL record locks issue. But because we're reporting it, they're shooting the messenger and we get the blame. Like, when are you going to fix this problem? It's like, well, when are you going to hire a DBA? So just a constant reminder of why I'm pretty much done with on-prem. And despite its potential flaws, I will take SaaS currently any day of the week. And then I had another call. We've had customers, they're like, yeah, your software has been working fine for 3 years, 0 issues. All of a sudden it crashes 5 times a day. We look at the logs and it's a multi-threading issue. Something in Windows is causing the .NET background worker, background thread component to drop threads and you lose communication with it. And like, this is super low level stuff. There's nothing we can do. It's like totally out of our control from the .NET level. So we initially had a customer and it's like, okay, another customer had the same error. We thought there was a correlation. Maybe it was a Windows update caused this. Well, back to the on-prem thing. One customer's on 2019, Windows Server 2019. 6 years old. Okay, like not unreasonable. The other customer's on Windows 2012. And I'm like, completely different Windows updates, completely different KB numbers listed in the Windows update list. No way to correlate these things. Like, I was like, nope, not going to go there. It's an environment issue. It worked fine for 3 years. All of a sudden it breaks. It's an environment issue. Like, we didn't touch anything. So yes, Eric says, stop logging, problem fixed. Exactly. It's like put on the blindfold, put in the earplug, stick your head in the sand, and everything's fine. And that's actually what they are doing. They're simply not monitoring their SQL Server. They're not monitoring their Windows servers. They're not monitoring just the blaring alerts out of all of their system. Kind of like most customers are not monitoring the just constant barrage of attacks on their VPNs, and every open port on their network is just being hammered with attacks every second. But if you don't monitor it, everything is peachy, right? So, yeah. Yes. S. Herman says on-prem SQL where indexes can be completely out of date. Everything takes ages. Yeah, Dynamics GP doesn't really have, typically doesn't have an out-of-date SQL index issue as much as the number one issue I see with on-prem SQL Server is insufficient RAM, incorrectly configured Mac server memory, and that produces pressure, memory pressure on Windows, and everything goes south. And then because it's on-prem SQL Server, oh, I know how to do that. I can open up an Access database and do a query against the production SQL Server with no where clause, right? And it just absolutely hammers the cache of the database, flushes the cache. Everything is lost right in the middle of posting and just game over. And you have record locks and it just goes downhill from here. Yeah. So, yeah, I understand BC is a different, on-prem BC has different indexing and optimization issues, but yeah, so I'm kind of tired of on-prem. And so, long week, crazy week, busy week, nonstop calls. I just said stop yesterday afternoon. Said I need to do something productive in that I call productive. So I finally, after a long time, installed and set up Grafana. And like, okay, what is this? Is it going to do what I want? I want real-time dashboards. I want to be able to do a real-time dashboard with live stats, with pretty pictures, monitoring what's going on in various systems. And this is part of a side secret project that I have that looks super cool. Let's just admit it, right? Like, look at that. How cool is that? And this is actually, I forget, this was prompted by a reminder from Troy Hunt. So Troy Hunt runs Have I Been Pwned, and he does some crazy stuff. So he set up, I think he used Grafana as well, set it up displayed by a Raspberry Pi that he tucked behind a large screen TV that he mounted in portrait mode on the wall of his office. So now he's got like a 5-foot tall, 1.5 meter tall TV, and it's got this giant Grafana dashboard of all of the stats of Have I Been Pwned operations. So all of his Azure functions and database queries and optimization or performance stats are on this Grafana dashboard. And so Christopher says Grafana is incredible. I agree with you. In 2 hours last night, knowing nothing, I spun up a DigitalOcean droplet, configured it, secured it, got SSH access to it. I registered a custom domain, set up the droplet, got it up and running, installed, configured Grafana, and I pointed it to our Business Central telemetry in under 2 hours. Now, it's just one bar chart, but in 2 hours, I was fully up and running with a Grafana hosted instance for $6 a month. Absolute, incredible. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. And so, yeah, I'm checking this out for a side project, and we're going to do some fun things with Grafana. And Friday, here we are. I have no idea what happened the weekend or the week. Like 7 days just flew by. And once again, this meme comes in. I was trying to just go to bed early last night, read a book, and I realized I hadn't updated my slides, hence me being late. And last week, I talked about how I took my car to the dealer, and they said, you haven't had an alignment in years. I said, fine. After I left with my fresh alignment, my car drifted sideways, and I'm constantly having to steer to the left so my car doesn't veer off the side of the road. So I took it back, and I later learned, they're like, yep, there's an issue. Your car is pulling to the right. I was like, okay. So they realigned the car. They said, nope, the alignment's fine. Well, I'm assuming this is not the first time they've seen this. So the tech swapped 2 tires on the car. Then they said the car pulls to the left. It seems, unbeknownst to me, it kind of makes sense, but it's kind of crazy. Slightly different wear patterns on my 2 front tires after the rotation of the oil change that they did before they did the alignment. Rotating the tires put 2 tires on the front of the car, and the wear pattern was different enough, or the tread depth was different enough, that it causes the car to drift or pull or steer essentially. Even though the alignment's perfect, the steering's perfect, the car drives to the right. And I'm like, this can't be real. But they swapped the tires and they said, well, now it's better, but it pulls a little to the left. And I'm just like, they said, basically, minimum you need to replace 2 tires. I've got 3 worn tires and one I had to replace. So that one is okay. But now I'm like, yes. And the tires are what? $280 a piece. So I'm like, okay, fine. So, but it turns out by swapping the tires, it's fine now as far as I'm concerned. I'm not noticing pulling. So I had to look this up, and apparently on the report they gave me, they called it static pull. Um, they said front tire static pull, replace 2 tires due to uneven tread depths causing vehicle to pull. Wow. And so I go reading down another rabbit hole, and apparently there's another one's called radial pull or something like that. My tech called it static pull. Other people have another name for it. Apparently it's a thing. And one guy said that a mechanic even took a tape measure around his tires and showed him that there's like 1 or 2 centimeter difference due to different tread wear on 2 of the tires. And it kind of makes sense, but I've never encountered this in my entire life. So this is wild. So I guess after the alignment, it lined the car up so that everything was nice and balanced, and it made it more sensitive to this pull when it occurs. So anyway, the car is fine now. They didn't charge me for the comeback, the return, to get it realigned and checked, and they figured it out. So now I just need to spend, $1,000 on new tires eventually, which is fine. Anyway, yeah, that was my Friday. Excellence update. Not much of an update. We've been busy, but I will be returning to El Salvador on February 6th. I'll be returning a repaired ThinkPad X1 Carbon, a couple new T14s, T14Ss, and the repaired MacBook, and a whole pile of other luggage of stuff that I need to take. So I'm doing my pre-packing because I have to pack at least once or twice to make sure I can fit everything and make sure I can carry it all in my carry-on, because Avianca is a stickler for all this stuff. I need to make sure I have all the lithium ions in my carry-on and not in the checked bag. So pretty crazy. So yeah, that's where I'm going. El Salvador, trivia, is the smallest country in all of Latin America, which I don't know if that includes like Jamaica or Puerto Rico, but at least within Central America, maybe. But yes, and it is home to, I believe, 8 million people. So yeah, it is a busy little place. So Ted says different size tires on either side of a drive axle do. Yeah, to a diff transfer case. Yeah, fortunately, I drive in 2-wheel drive, too high most of the time. But yeah, that's an interesting point. I've just never had this before, so I'm kind of puzzled how. I've worn through quite a few tires. So anyway, I'm going to get all new tires. I'm close enough where I need it. And yeah, so El Salvador is coming up, and one trip at a time. And last night, I had an interesting dream. I have bizarre dreams all the time. And I ordered In-N-Out in a laundromat. And then I went over to get my laundry after ordering my In-N-Out burger and fries. I could find neither my burger and fries nor my laundry. And if you've ever been to a laundromat, you'll think that's funny. So yeah. So here's an example of AI generate an image for me, and you can tell the burger is malformed, the fries look a little strange, but the guy standing in a laundromat at night looks pretty convincing, right? So yeah, that's what's cool is I can type my bizarre dream into Grok and it instantly generates a photo for me. Like, I mean, isn't this the Jetsons style technology you were promised as a kid? We didn't get flying cars, but we got a burger and fries in a laundromat. And this reminds me, I just saw this morning, there's some new AI super fancy engine that a company released as a side project that is apparently phenomenal, and you can run it locally. Something R1. I just saw it this morning, so I'm looking into it. I probably won't run it, but it makes me wonder if this AI frenzy of OpenAI and Perplexity and Grok and all these others fighting over this, every single week they're just trying to outdo each other with these new models. And the concern is in this frenzy, this fashion show of AI, imagine being Microsoft, who has sunk billions of dollars into uh, Copilot, or whatever it's called these days, integrating this AI and model into all of its products. And what it reminds me of is if you've ever had a car, an older car that had the infotainment system, you remember that term, with the CD changer built in and the navigation built in. You know what that car is like after 10 years, or that infotainment system after 10 years? Or the cars that had the built in cell phones with the wired handset? That's what I'm wondering about with Microsoft. Like, it's fine to go play with the latest grok and do a laundromat burger photo, but when Copilot is baked into your operational systems, your ERP systems, and your business processes, every aspect of your software, in 10 years, will it feel like that infotainment system with the CD-based navigation? That's what I'm wondering. So that's what goes through my brain at night as I'm dreaming about burgers in a laundromat. And with that, another week has absolutely flown by. Go and learn something, play with some Grafana, find a new laptop on eBay, and go check out some Business Central setup page options. I guarantee you, you'll be absolutely baffled by some of the things you find. Eric says Copilot has switched LLMs multiple times already. And so, yeah, I think they have to. If they have not architected Copilot to be able to swap out engines, they're going to be dead in 1 year. But the problem is, imagine being a company who has based your business process off of those models, where your bank rec matching or your sales suggestions or your sales agent, whatever that thing is that they're coming out with now, is based on one engine, and then next month it changes. Your sales recommendations from your customers is presumably going to be a nightmare when those models change. Things are going to become unpredictable. So, like, how are they going to deal with that? And that's why I try not to chase fashion trends. Like, it's just a losing battle. So I just stand back and say, okay, someday this is going to settle down. And in the meantime, I'm going to make photos of a guy eating cheeseburgers in the laundromat. So with that, have a good weekend. Have some fun, relax, or don't, and build a 6 foot tall Grafana dashboard on your TV. I'd love to see it. That's what I'm working on this weekend. Okay. Adios. Nos vemos. Que tengas un buen fin de semana. Right? I think I said that right. Okay. Cheers. Adios. How do I get out of here? Okay.